Colleagues, the agenda for this meeting has been distributed. Could I please invite you to adopt the agenda? Are there any objections? With no objections, the agenda is adopted. May I remind colleagues that the election of committee officers for the next annual session of the Assembly will take place during this session, which is scheduled to take place now. May I also remind colleagues that if you wish to speak in the plenary debate, you will need to register with the table office by 2 p.m. today. We will now continue our consideration of the supplementary items. Please have your voting cards ready. As previously agreed, if no amendment has been tabled to a paragraph and if nobody requests a vote on a paragraph, we will consider it adopted. Today we begin with supplementary item 9 on ongoing war crimes against media workers and violations of their rights during the Russian Federation's war of aggression against Ukraine. I would now like to give the floor to the principal sponsor of this supplementary item, Mr. Pascal Alizard from France. Mr. Alizard, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Chers collègues, dans tout État démocratique, une presse libre, indépendante et pluraliste constitue une garantie essentielle de l'état de droit, mais aussi pour la vitalité du débat public. Elle permet aux citoyens d'accéder à une information fiable, d'exercer leur esprit critique et de demander des comptes aux autorités publiques. Sans journalistes indépendants, il ne peut y avoir ni véritable transparence, ni contrôle démocratique effectif. Cette exigence devient encore plus cruciale en temps de guerre, lorsque les armes parlent, lorsque la propagande, la désinformation ou encore les tentatives de manipulation de l'opinion publique se multiplient, avec des ingérences numériques étrangères de plus en plus nombreuses et dangereuses, le travail des journalistes est souvent le dernier rempart contre l'effacement de la vérité. Informer dans une zone de conflit n'est pas seulement une mission professionnelle, c'est une contribution directe à la défense des principes démocratiques et du droit international. Les chiffres qui nous sont rappelés régulièrement concernant le conflit en Ukraine sont particulièrement alarmants. Depuis février 2022, c'est plus d'une centaine de professionnels des médias qui ont perdu la vie, des centaines d'attaques qui visent les journalistes et les organes de presse. Derrière ces sombres statistiques se profile une réalité particulièrement tragique et douloureuse. Faire taire ainsi les journalistes, c'est d'empêcher les faits d'être connus, c'est priver les citoyens nationaux, mais aussi internationaux, de leur droit à l'information, c'est fragiliser les fondements mêmes de nos démocraties. Pour cette raison, la liberté des médias occupe historiquement et légitimement une place centrale dans les engagements de l'OSCE. Notre organisation a reconnu depuis sa création qu'il ne pouvait y avoir de sécurité durable sans respect des droits fondamentaux. Et le travail accompli par la représentante de l'OSCE pour la liberté et les médias est à cet égard essentiel. En documentant les violations, en alertant les États participants et en défendant les journalistes menacés, elle contribue directement à la mise en œuvre de nos engagements communs. Mes chers collègues, si nous connaissons aujourd'hui avec précision la réalité des conflits qui frappent notre région, c'est grâce à ces femmes et à ces hommes qui continuent d'informer au péril de leur vie. Nous avons donc la responsabilité collective de protéger les journalistes. Dans le cas de la guerre en Ukraine, nous devons de toutes nos forces continuer à exiger la libération immédiate des journalistes détenus en violation du droit international. soutenir les mécanismes de documentation des crimes commis contre les médias et lutter contre l'impunité de ceux qui ont commis, perpétré et commandité ces crimes atroces. De façon générale, partout, en temps de guerre comme en temps de paix, protéger les journalistes, c'est protéger le droit à l'information et donc défendre la démocratie elle-même. Ces exigences sont aujourd'hui plus que jamais des impératifs face à la numérisation de nos sociétés sous l'effet de la domination des grandes plateformes numériques. Le recul de la hiérarchie de l'information entre vraies nouvelles, fake news, contenus manipulés ou générés par de l'intelligence artificielle contribue à gommer la frontière entre information, fake news, commentaires, divertissement et communication, voire influence ou ingérence. En conclusion, nous devons aujourd'hui, plus que jamais, protéger nos espaces informationnels, dont les journalistes traditionnels, respectant la charte de Munich, et les médias éditorialisés sont les garants, et ceci en temps de paix, bien évidemment, mais aussi en temps de guerre. Alors, mes chers collègues, merci de bien vouloir accepter ce point additionnel dans la résolution de la Commission, puis dans la résolution finale de la Hague. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alizar. The floor is now open for debate. The time limit for speeches is 3 minutes. We have 2 names in the list for this supplementary item. The first speaker is Mr. Mpanzu Bamenga from Netherlands, followed by Mr. Yaroslav Yurishin from Ukraine. Mr. Bamenga, the floor is yours.
Monsieur le Président, permettez-moi de commencer en français. Je tiens à remercier chaleureusement notre collègue Pascal Alizar pour son excellent travail. Je soutiens pleinement cette résolution. Merci beaucoup. I strongly support this supplementary item. Free and independent journalism is not a luxury. It is the oxygen of democracy. Journalists do not carry weapons, they carry cameras, they carry notebooks, they carry the truth. And for that, many of them pay with their freedom or even with their lives. It is something that journalists do. When they are silenced, imprisoned, or killed, it is not only their voices that are being attacked. It is our shared freedom that's being attacked. It is our democracy. It is our right to know the truth. If democracy dies in darkness, journalists are the ones who keeps the lights on. So let us have the courage to protect those who protect the truth. Because when we defend journalists, we defend human dignity, we defend media freedom, we defend democracy. Because no one is truly free until all of us are free. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Mr. Yaroslav Yurishin from Ukraine.
Dear colleagues, we do thank our French colleagues to initiate this resolution and stress that in time of war, access to truth, access to real information, crucial. First of all, for democracy, because without truth, world even don't have information, the level of cruelty, which crimes which committed by Russia against Ukraine. Now we know at least more than 900 crimes against mass media in Ukraine, but we do understand that Russian example push forward cruelty against mass media around the world. We vote for resolution about level of freedom of speech in different countries, in Georgia, in Palestine, in our region. But in our region, what we know. Victoria Roshina was only 27 years old when she was killed. She was killed in prison after several years incommunicado, without any connection with relatives. When we prepared this draft of resolution, we, with my colleagues, Evgenia Kravchuk, who now here, the head of Temporary Investigation Commission, we know about only 131 killed journalists. But through this day, we have not least than 134. It's a number of our inactivity. It's a symbol what we must react even more harder. We must protect not only Ukrainian, but journalists around the world, because not only Ukrainian journalist was killed in this war. We deeply sorry about death, for example, of Mr. Lilican from France, and we talked about him yesterday on our side event. So thanks a lot, and we hope that everyone vote for this resolution and give her even small but very crucial step to give additional safeness of journalists. And we must start on not only on OSCE, but UN platform, discussion about strengthening humanitarian international law to give guarantee to our journalists. Yesterday night, Russia attacked Kiev and destroyed one of well-known media outlets, this channel, Пятый канал. So it's happened again if we not stop that. So vote for that and stop cruelty against journalists. Thanks.
Dear colleagues, please have your voting cards ready. We will now move to consider the amendments submitted to the draft resolution. One valid amendment has been tabled and copies of the amendment have been made available. In discussing amendments, I will call the proposer of the amendment first and then will call any opponent of the amendment. We will now take paragraphs 1 to 39 together, which do not have any amendments proposed on them. Does anyone want a vote of any of these paragraphs? With no request for a vote, paragraphs 1 to 39 are agreed. I call Ms. Oderbrink from Sweden to propose Amendment 40, which amends paragraph 40. Amendment 1, which amends paragraph 40.
Thank you, Chair. And I also would like to thank Mr. Alisar for this very important supplementary item. I will take all opportunities possible to mention the 3 OSCE officials, because Mr. Alisar, in his supplementary item, is writing about the journalists, of course, media workers and other civilians. And therefore, I would like to include the 3 detained OSCE officials, Dmitry Shabanov, Vadim Golda, and Maxim Petrov. So I hope that you will support this amendment. Thank you.
Does anyone wish to speak against amendment? Mr. Alizar, what is your opinion on the amendment?
Je suis évidemment d'accord avec cette proposition d'amendement et j'en remercie ma collègue.
Thank you. I shall now put Amendment 1 to the vote. Will all those in favor of the amendment please raise their voting cards? Thank you. All those against, please raise their voting cards. Abstentions? Amendment 1 is adopted. We will now vote on paragraph 40 as amended. Those in favor, please raise your voting cards. Thank you. Against? Abstentions? Paragraph 40 is adopted. We now move to a vote on the draft resolution. Would those in favor of adopting the draft resolution please raise their voting cards? Thank you. All those against? Abstentions? The draft resolution is adopted. We will now move on to supplementary item 11 on the situation in Belarus in the context of regional security, transnational repression, and human rights. I would now like to give the floor to the principal sponsor of the supplementary item, Mr. Björn Söder from Sweden. Mr. Söder, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Dear colleagues, the time has come for the OCPA to pay much greater attention to Belarus. We must honestly acknowledge that in the early 2000s, the international community made a mistake by gradually legitimizing representatives of the Lukashenko regime instead of consistently supporting the Belarusian people and democratic forces. This mistake came at a high price. It gave the dictatorship time to strengthen itself, become dependent on the Kremlin, and turn Belarus into an instrument of war and pressure against Europe. Today, Belarusian territory is used by Russia as a military, logistical, and political base for its aggression against Ukraine. The attack on Kiev came through Belarus. Russian troops and military infrastructure are stationed in the country, while Belarusian military industry and oil refining work in the interest of the Russian army. Ukraine must take the Belarusian factor into account and keep resources on its northern border, exactly what the Kremlin wants. We must also remember the regime's involvement in the illegal deportation of Ukrainian children. Lukashenko and representatives of his regime must be held accountable for war crimes, for transnational repression, and for turning Belarus into a platform for aggression. This is not only a threat to Ukraine, it is a threat to Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and the entire eastern flank of Europe. We have already seen migration blackmail, border provocations, airspace violations, and persecution of Belarusians abroad. Therefore, the answer must be clear. There will be no secure Europe without a democratic Belarus. Resolving the Belarusian crisis does not mean backroom deals with Lukashenko or temporary de-escalation. It means an end to repression, to the release of all political prisoners, free and fair elections, restoration of the rule of law, and accountability for crimes. Belarusians are not a regime. If we do not fight for the people, the Kremlin will try to turn them into a part of the Russian world, people without their own identity who can be used in future wars. Our task is the opposite, to keep Belarusians Belarusian, to give them a European perspective and to make them Europe's allies, not Russia's weapons. That is why we welcome the important steps already taken within this assembly, the participation of representatives of the Belarusian Democratic Forces, the Office of Svetlana Tsikhanovskaya, the Coordination Council, the United Transitional Cabinet, and the Platform for Belarusian Political Parties, as well as the establishment of the Group for a Democratic Belarus. This supplementary item calls things by their true names. Belarus under Lukashenko's rule has become a source of threats to regional security, but it also shows the way forward: support for democratic forces, protection of Belarusians in exile, pressure on the regime, accountability for crimes, and the return of Belarus to democracy. That is why support for this document is not only support for Belarus, it is support for the security of all Europe. Thank you. Shiva Belarus.
Thank you, Mr. Björn. Mr. Söder. No members have signed up to speak on the supplementary item, so we will now move to consider the amendments submitted to the draft resolution. 2 valid amendments have been tabled and copies of the amendments have been made available. In discussing amendments, I will call the proposer of the amendment first and then will call any opponent of the amendment. The time limit is 1 minute. We will now take paragraphs 1 to 10 together, which do not have any amendments proposed on them. Does anyone want a vote on any of these paragraphs? Paragraphs 1 to 10. With no request for a vote, paragraphs 1 to 10 are agreed. I call Mr. Doggett from the United States of America to propose Amendment 1, which inserts a new paragraph after paragraph 10. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, and I salute our colleague from Sweden for his leadership on this resolution. While our focus through much of this assembly has been on the war crimes of Vladimir Putin, and while Lukashenko may be only a pawn of Putin, he is a dangerous pawn, particularly to his own citizens who he's tracked in countries throughout the Baltics and Poland and the surrounding area. So as we stand firm against Russia's illegal criminal invasion of Ukraine, we must also confront this dangerous partnership, the shared toolkit of international repression between Moscow and Minsk. Together, Putin and Lukashenko target opposition leaders, deeming them extremists, that being anyone who opposes his totalitarian rule. They harass the families of exiled dissidents and employ spyware for surveillance. Beyond borders, they place critics on international alerts and deny and revoke passports so no one can escape. Repression at home does not stay at home. It finds repression abroad. This is an additional comment through the amendment that we unite and reject the role that Belarus has played with reference to Ukraine and with reference to its own citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 1? What is Mr. Söder's opinion on the amendment?
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank Mr. Cohen for the proposed amendment, which I support. Thank you.
I shall now put Amendment 1 to the vote. Will all those in favor of the amendment please raise their voting cards? Thank you. All those against, please raise your voting cards. Abstentions? Amendment 1 is adopted. We will now take paragraphs 11 to 19 together, which do not have any amendments proposed on them. Does anyone want to vote on any of these paragraphs? Paragraphs 11 to 19. With no request for a vote, paragraphs 11 to 19 are agreed. I call Mr. Loperfido from Italy to propose Amendment 2, which amends paragraph 20. Any co-sponsor of the amendment may take the floor. Mr. Söder, please.
Thank you, Chair. Since no one of them seems to be here, I just want to say that I support the proposed amendment. I don't know if I can propose it here myself, but in that case, I will.
Yes, you can propose first and then have an opinion about that.
Yeah. Well, I support it.
Presumably, you presented the amendment. Does anyone wish to speak against the amendment? No one. And as we heard from Mr. Söder, he supports the amendment. I shall now put Amendment 2 to the vote. Will all those in favor of the amendment please raise their voting cards? Thank you. All those against? Abstentions? Amendment 2 is adopted. We will now vote on paragraph 20 as amended. Those in favor, please raise your voting cards. Thank you. Those against? Abstentions? Paragraph 20 is adopted. We will now take paragraphs 21 to 25, which do not have any amendments proposed on them. Does anyone want to vote on any of these paragraphs? Paragraphs 21 to 25. With no request for a vote, paragraphs 21 to 25 are agreed. We now move to a vote on the draft resolution. Would those in favor of adopting the draft resolution please raise their voting cards? Thank you. Those against? Abstentions? The draft resolution is adopted. We will now move on to supplementary item 13 on the situation of national minorities and indigenous peoples in the Russian Federation. I would now like to give the floor to the principal sponsor of this supplementary item, Mr. Ruslanas Baranovas from Lithuania.
Thank you, Chair. Dear colleagues, dear friends, my name is Simonas Gentvilas. I'm also representing the co-signatories because Ruslanas was not able to come here. 22 of us have signed this draft resolution, which takes into attention the situation of national minorities and indigenous people in the Russian Federation. Across all the OSCE nations, we trust and believe that persons belonging to national minorities have right to free expression, preserving and developing their ethnic and cultural, linguistic and religious identity. Nonetheless, we are noting that, especially in Russian Federation, we have a deep concern over national minorities which face severe restrictions on fundamental rights, including freedom of expression, the right of self-determination and cultural rights. We look and we are expressing profound concern that after the Ukrainian invasion since 2021, the drastically and disproportionately big number was affected by indigenous people and the national minorities who were particularly the ones targeted for mobilization and recruitment to the military services. They are living in the poorest regions of Russia. They are disproportionately high numbers in casualties in the current war. We also regret that Russian legislation provides special protection only for indigenous peoples whose populations do not exceed 50,000 people. We also note that Russian Ministry of Justice lists organizations that defend the rights of minority peoples and national minorities as extremist organizations. We also regret that Russia has not acceded to UN Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples and has withdrawn from Council of Europe's framework of Convention for Protection of National Minorities. Therefore, we, the 22 signatories, we are urging this plenary assembly to condemn mass criminalization of national minority organizations, which constitutes a violation of international law. We also urge this assembly to stop Russia from targeting indigenous peoples and persons belonging to national minorities. We request Russia to refrain from using psychological and physical coercion to sign conscription documents and abstain from criminal prosecution of persons belonging to indigenous peoples or national minorities. We call Russia to cease the practice of systematic environmental degradation caused primarily by unregulated mining activity in the territories inhabited in Russia's indigenous peoples and national minorities. We also encourage Russia to ratify International Labour Organization Convention, which protects the rights of indigenous and tribal peoples and requires states to consult indigenous peoples before making decisions affecting them. Finally, we call on OSCE High Commissioner on National Minorities to take additional measures regarding the observance of the rights of ethnic minorities and indigenous peoples of the Russian Federation, given the blatant cases of violations of the rights of Chechens, Ingush, Kyrgyzstans, and other nationalities living in Russian Federation. Dear Assembly, please adopt this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. The floor is now open for debate. The time limit for speeches is 3 minutes. I give the floor to Ms. Özgür Saki from Turkey, followed by Honorable Judy White from Canada. Ms. Saki, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I would like to thank this item, and I emphasize that international law cannot be strong in some places and silent the others. And human rights in pursuit of peace and security, humanitarian law, central role takes place. So, wars are not inevitable. Too often, wars emerge from placed rivalries rooted in competition over resources, markets, strategic corridors, and sphere of accumulation within an unequal global capitalist order. If we are serious about preventing future war, violence, we must also confront the structures that make violence possible. You know, today and tomorrow, world leaders, including Donald Trump, will assemble in Ankara, Turkey, for the annual NATO summit. The US and European states are preparing for a new war using security and defense rhetoric. We know very well from our recent history and ongoing wars the kind of devastation this would lead to: massacres, displaced population, mass migration, ecological destruction, reaching terrifying proportion, impoverishment, hunger. So rising violence against women. And it proves once again that European values are not just a luxury for times of peace we need during the wars. NATO Secretary Mark Rutte and Trump said Turkey is extremely important to NATO. It has one of the strongest armies in the alliance. The Turkish armed force are very well equipped and well trained because they need the Turkish army and the young people who will die in their wars. War means mass migration. Once again, they need a Turkey and Tayyip Erdogan that will keep refugees with its own borders, away from Europe. Meanwhile, the capital has been placed under a virtual lockdown for days in Ankara. The governor's office imposed a ban on all public events between 28 and 10 July. Human rights defenders and opposition continued to protest, suppressing of civil demonstration and detention of activists, lawyers, and journalists. Yes, I agree with completely. If international law and common principles are to serve peace, they must protect all peoples equally without exception. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Honorable Judy White from Canada. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm pleased to take the floor in support of this supplementary item. I'd like to thank our colleague, Mr. Barnova from Lithuania, for highlighting this important issue. Since the start of Russia's full-scale war of aggression against Ukraine, the situation of national minorities and indigenous peoples in Russia have severely degraded. In our 2024 report, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the Russian Federation noted that indigenous people and national minorities have been disproportionately mobilized, some by force, to fight against Ukraine. She went on further to note that as a result, some small number groups may actually face extinction from war casualties. In that very same report, she found that the Russian state's emphasis on national unity and patriotism has led to increasing attrition of range of rights from minorities and indigenous peoples, from language to land rights to freedom and, of expression and freedom of security. The Special Rapporteur went on to raise concerns in her 2024 report that in that reiteration of the report, she indicated that Russia's legal framework on anti-extremism and counterterrorism has been turned into a deliberate, widespread, and systemic strategy to suppress independent voices, dismantle civil society, and consolidate authoritarian control. It's not enough for us to simply acknowledge these developments. By adopting the supplementary item, we would ensure that the Hague Declaration includes a strong call for Russia to put an end to these practices, and as it also urges Russia to stop targeting indigenous peoples and persons belonging to national minorities with its anti-extremism and counterterrorism legislation, and to stop its repressive policies towards these groups. Colleagues, we cannot ignore any longer the situation of indigenous peoples and national minorities in Russia, and I urge you to support this supplementary item.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, no amendments have been proposed to the draft resolution. As no amendments have been proposed, we will now take all the paragraphs 1 to 18 together. Does anyone want a vote of any of these paragraphs? With no request for a vote, paragraphs 1 to 18 are adopted. We now move to a vote on the draft resolution. Would those in favor of adopting the draft resolution please raise their voting cards? Thank you. All those against? Abstentions? The draft resolution is adopted. Dear colleagues, we now move to the next item on our agenda, which is elections of the committee officers for the annual session. Before going on, as our dear rapporteur, Ms. Carina Odebrink, is not running again for the rapporteur's position and ending her tenure as rapporteur, I would like to thank for her hard work of the past 3 years, for guiding us through her report and resolutions and prioritizing what we need to focus on as a committee when it comes to democracy, human rights, and humanitarian affairs. And I want to thank you, Carina, for being an amazing colleague in the leadership of the third committee, and wish you best of luck. Thank you very much. And you have the floor.
Thank you, our dear colleagues. Thank you, Sargis, for your warm words. And thank you, colleagues, for giving me the trust, the opportunity to be the rapporteur of this very important committee. Democracy, human rights, and the humanitarian law has always been important, but today, I think it's more important than ever when we see the backsliding of democracy and human rights. So it has been a privilege, and I'm so honored for the possibility to serve you as the rapporteur for the committee. This is not a one-woman show. This is something we do together. And I also would like to thank Sargis Kandanyan for your excellent leadership. You are so calm and so balanced, and you are serving this committee in the best way. And I also would like to thank Vice Chair Christine Blower from UK. You are so good participants and so good colleagues in this work. Last but not least, I also would like to thank Freya and the Secretariat for your strong support. Without you, we should have been less professional and less competent, I think. You are so important for me and for us so that we can do our job. So thank you to you, and thank you to all of you again.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, I have appointed Dr. Hedi Fry from Canada, Mr. Kamil Aydin from Turkey, and Ms. Gudrun Kugler from Austria as tellers to oversee the conduct of the election and the counting of the votes. The International Secretariat informs me that the following nominations have been received in the table office. For the chair, we have only my candidacy, Mr. Sargis Kandanyan. Thank you for the trust, dear colleagues, for this opportunity to serve you another year. Thank you very much. And as the position of the chair is not contested, I declare that Sargis Kandanyan is elected by acclamation. Thank you. I must confess this was the most embarrassing part of this meeting. For the vice chair, we have the candidacy of Baroness Christine Blower. And again, Christine, I'm glad that I have this opportunity to work with you one more year. And as the position of vice chair is not contested, I declare the Baroness Christine Blower is elected by acclamation. Would you like to say something?
I would just very much like to say thank you very much for those who appear to have had sufficient confidence in me not to feel that they needed to remove me from this position. But much more importantly, I have enjoyed immensely working with Sargis and with Karina on what I consider to be the central and most important work of the OSCPA. Everything is important, but the work of this committee, I think, stands out, and I'm delighted to be able to pursue it for another year, particularly with my colleague Sargis. Thank you.
Dear colleagues, for the rapporteur, we have the following candidates. Mr. Mpanzu Bamenga from Netherlands and Mr. Ulrik Nilsson from Sweden. As the position of the rapporteur is contested, we will have an election. The order of the speakers has been randomly determined. Mr. Ulrik Nilsson shall speak first, followed by Mr. Mpanzu Bamenga. I would ask the colleagues to come up to the podium to present themselves so everyone in the committee can see you. Mr. Ulrik Nilsson, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Chair. My father once learned me that you should go through life as a rower. You are moving steady fast but slowly forwards, but you're keeping the track and holding the lines by looking backwards. And I think that is something that have made myself acting like I do. I like to have a slow. I have to like to consider matters. I like to listen to both sides before I take my position. Who am I then? Well, I'm a more than 60 years old engineer from Sweden who has been in different political positions for more than 30 years. So I have a long experience from both regional, municipal and national arenas. I've been a member of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly since 2022. I've been made election observations more than 10 of them during 2 different periods. And I've also been used by UDIR as a lecturer when it comes to parliamentary oversight and the constitutions and guides for parliamentarians. So I can say that I have had a long history in this arena. But I must also say I'm a firm believer in democracy. I'm a firm believer in the need to exchange views and to learn from each other and to find new ways. And therefore, I'm glad actually to be contested today. And I welcome my contestant because we can learn from each other and from the public debate. Turning to the test that I'm applying for, I see, as I said in my speech 2 days ago, that there are actually 3 areas that need to be balanced when you talk about democracy, human rights, and humanitarian matters. You have one side that is the legal, the structure, the institutions to defend and to protect the rights for everybody. One part is to be able to see those who are misfortunate, those who need support to gain their humanitarian rights. And thirdly, and I think that is an important challenge for us all as parliamentarians, we must stand for the principles of freedom of speech, the principles of democracy, the principles of human rights. And we must fight that fight, because if we surrender it, if we say, well, just only look to the legal system, don't stand up for people, don't stand up for the principle, then who else should do it? We as parliamentarians have a very strong demand to stand for the principles. And if I'm elected, I will try to listen to you all. I will try to take in all these opinions that I see. As I said, I'm a rower man. But I will also be a strong champion for the principle of a free and open debate and to meet everybody and listen to everybody. So please follow your heart, vote for the candidate you think is best. This is what I stand for. Thank you for the word, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Nielsen. I now give the floor to Mr. Mpanzu Bamenga. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Dear fellow Parliament members, dear Excellencies, my name is Mpanzu Bamenga, and the name means fighter. Fighter in the language of Kikongo, where I'm born, Kinshasa. And I learned to fight when I was 11 years old. This was the first time that I witnessed injustice. I came to the Netherlands here as an asylum seeker, as a refugee, and I witnessed injustice in my life, not only in my own life, but also the people surrounding me. And this was the first moment that I said to myself, I will dedicate my life to a life of dignity, to a life to fight for freedom for everyone. And this is why I became a human rights lawyer. And I had many cases in court, and some of them I won a landmark case together with all kind of organizations that led to a very important decision on racial profiling in my country. And I said to myself, you know what? I need to go to Parliament to make laws and to make sure that not only me, not only people who look like me, but everyone can live free. And that's why I went to politics, and that's why I went to Parliament. And now I'm standing here before you because I believe that the challenge is much bigger. The challenge is bigger for all of us. And in every country who are part of the Parliamentary Assembly, it is important to fight for human rights. As Karina said, the work of our community is now important, more than ever. And I will show it to you with a story. A few years ago, I met a young man from Ukraine. His name was Sviat. We met during an international exchange program in Washington, D.C. I remember it as it was yesterday, that we stood together at the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial, talking about our shared dreams, talking about how we can work on a more just world. Back then, neither of us knew what the future would hold. He went on to become the youngest parliament member in Ukraine history. I became parliament member in the Netherlands. In February 2022, I was planning to visit him in Kiev. I asked him how things were because we were looking at the news and we saw that Russian troops were gathering at the border. He replied to me, "My brother, Kiev is as wonderful as always and calm and steady. Please let me know when you are coming so I can show you true Ukrainian hospitality." A few days later, Russia launched its full-scale invasion and started a war against Ukraine. Today, my friend is not only a parliamentarian, he's also a soldier fighting on the front line. Every single day, he risks his life, not because he loves war, but because he loves freedom. Because he believed that democracy is worth defending it. Because he believed that human dignity is worth protecting. His story reminds us that democracy is never guaranteed. Human rights are never guaranteed. Peace is never guaranteed. They depend on people with courage. Courage of those defending their country. Courage of those speaking truth to power. And courage of those who refuse to look away when human dignity is under attack. That is why I ask all of us today, let us have the courage to stand with the people like Sviat, the courage to stand for democracy, to stand for human rights, the courage to defend the freedom and the dignity of every human being, because no one is truly free until all of us are free. And as a rapporteur, I promise you, I will stand ready to work with all of you to strengthen democracy, defend human rights, and build a future of lasting peace. Thank you.
Thank you. I will hand over to the Secretariat to explain the balloting process. Freya, the floor is yours.
Dear members, we will now vote by secret ballot for the position of rapporteur. Ballot papers have been prepared, so please come to the table at the side of the podium, right over here, to collect your ballot papers. You will all need your voting cards because you need to hand them over to receive the ballot, please. To vote, please place a cross by the name of your preferred candidate. The candidate with the highest numbers of votes will be elected, and in case of a tie, lots will be drawn. Can I also please ask the tellers that have been appointed to slowly make their way over here to check the ballot box so it can be placed in the middle of the podium. As for the members, you will cast your vote and then bring your ballot in the middle of the stage because this is where the box will be. It will be placed here momentarily. It just has to be checked by the tellers. And then the committee will be suspended while we count votes. Thank you. Dear members, we're about to close voting, so if you haven't cast your vote, please come forward to the stage. Thank you. Dear members, we're closing voting now. Thank you very much.
Dear colleagues, we are about to announce the results. Please take your seats. Dear colleagues, please take your seats. I call the meeting to order. This is the results of the election for the position of Rapporteur to the General Committee on Democracy, Human Rights and Humanitarian Questions. 74 members voted. Mr. Mapanzu Bamenga received 41 votes. Mr. Ulrich Nilsson received 32 votes. There were 1 spoiled ballot papers. Mr. Mapanzu Bamenga is accordingly elected to the position of Rapporteur. Congratulations, Mr. Bamenga. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, that concludes the business of the General Committee on Democracy, Human Rights and Humanitarian Questions. Thank you very much for your constructive conversation that we had. Thank you.